The next session is on the EV revolution and the effects on motor dealer groups, but particularly on sales, added value products and after sales. And can I ask Chris Strong, Head of Product Innovation and Strategy at Car Care Plan.
Morning all. So the session we're going to go through today, as we said, is the EV revolution and the effects on motor dealer groups. I'm not going to be here by myself. I do have three members of the panel currently getting mic'd up, so I'll invite them up in a second. I haven't got too many slides to go through. It's more of an overview of how we see it at Car Care Plan and the challenges. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of overlap in some of the presentations today because we're all pretty much worried about the same thing, but hopefully it's not just going to be the same words in a different order. So, as we say, the electric vehicle transition is underway. We know that. In most cases, this is really sped up over the last couple of years due to the increasing cost of fuel prices. And as we know, and that's been alluded to, by 2030, there is going to be a ban on ICE vehicle sales altogether. New electric car sales held up well in September. You've probably seen the figures. Even as new car registrations overall dropped 20% compared to the same month last year. The cost of living crisis is hitting the UK's car market. Sales of petrol cars down 27%, diesel cars down 21% in terms of actual sales volumes year on year. However, electric vehicles market share still increased. Another 2% compared to September 2021. Electric cars have secured an impressive share of the market. 17% of all new car registrations were electric in September. We just see that increasing. If the availability was there, and obviously used vehicles are coming through now as well, the electrification of our car park is going to increase. It's also estimated that by 2025, 50% of all new car sales, subject to availability, will be electric. Independent research found that 1 in 3 drivers of ICE vehicles are extremely concerned about the current cost of fuel. At the time of writing this, it was current cost of fuel, current cost of fuel, but obviously now we're concerned about the current cost of energy as well. However, still half of all current ICE vehicle owners are considering a move to pure electric over the next, and as Andy said, over the next, for their next vehicle purchase as part of the renewal process. Research from Volkswagen Financial Services shows annual finance cases for electric vehicles has increased 1,062% from July 2019 to July 2022. Up to August 2022, EVs have accounted for 16% of new car sales. That's up 11% from 2021. Now, I wrote this, but I also crossed it out. So at time of writing, and this was back in July, so different world in July, according to Whatcar, even with the increasing energy prices, an EV can cost as little as 2p a mile to run if charged at home, compared with more than 20p per mile on the petrol or diesel car. I imagine that's kind of doubled now, so you're probably looking 4 to 5p per mile. And again, this is just one of the major reasons the EV market share continues to grow at a rapid pace. And dealers are adapting, having to adapt, as Steve said, to keep up with the trend and ensuring customers have options. And I think that's key, is customers having the options, so they understand what they're entering into. You know, this isn't when you transition from an electric vehicle, all the research that we've done, or to an electric vehicle, all the research that we've done, it's a culture shift. It's a complete life change from just being able to point your car in one direction. When the little light comes on, you put more liquid in it, and then it keeps going. It's a different world. Electric cars charged at home on the standard variable tariff are over 40% cheaper to run per mile compared to petrol and diesel alternatives. And as the cost of living crisis continues to hit new car sales, more and more customers choose to go electric because of the savings that EVs offer, insulating drivers from the worst of the market downturn. When it comes to sustainable income for after-sales departments, which is obviously absolutely key, many EV servicing programs, they're no longer annual. They're either on demand, up to 2 years. That's going to affect touch points with customers. It's going to catastrophically affect, in the long run, after-sales servicing, parts. Oil's going to be gone. Due to fewer servicing event requirements, after-sales income for most dealer groups and OEMs will be greatly reduced. According to a recent AM article, 33% already, and some of my panel members will tell you it could be as high as 75% reduction in after-sales and service and parts income once the full transition has been completed. So Car Care Plan, along with our dealer and OEM partners, are investigating the potential impact of these changes. How are we going to react as a business, as a company, as an industry to the reduced sales and reduced income on after sales, and the reduction of customer touch points, which is obviously key as well. We're looking into what additional services and benefits can be developed. Bespoke products and services for the pure EV driver. A Car Care Plan, we adapted our warranties over 2 years ago. We don't have an electric vehicle warranty. What we did is that we blended our ICE warranty to include electric vehicles. You know, it was complicated. However, right now, just to make things easier, we have a product on the warranty, predominantly with most of our extended warranty programs and our manufacturer programs where EVs are just included as a standard term. So for electric cars to be adopted on a wider scale, a number of important issues need to be addressed. So from lack of charging infrastructure, which you'll hear a lot today, limited journey range, and we also have used the term range anxiety a lot over the last year. I think that's more transitioning into charge anxiety now. It's not the range, it's how to get a charge, especially in inner London. We've got people who work for Car Care Plan who attempt to own an electric vehicle in and around within the M25, and the charging structure is difficult. So we've looked at the 4 main areas or challenges we think ourselves and our dealer partners are going to face. So first of all, lack of charging infrastructure. The first challenge facing manufacturers is the lack of charging. A recent study, it's not just lack of charge points, it's the type of charge points that we're lacking. A recent survey by QuickFit, 37% of respondents cited the lack of charging points in their area to be the most important reason for preventing them to buy an EV. Whilst increasing the number and the visibility of charging networks, that will increase customer confidence in buying an electric vehicle, but manufacturers cannot drive this alone. We need collaboration between industry bodies, government, third parties, businesses, suppliers, dealer groups, to help with the deployment of charging points at the scale needed to meet the demand, because we're all going to be driving them in 10 years' time. And we're all going to be driving automatics. Low capacity charging points. So another issue manufacturers we need to address as an industry, manufacturers need to also address is the low capacity charging points. While charging capacity largely depends on the size of the battery and the speed of the charging point, it can take anywhere between 30 minutes to 24 hours to fully charge an electric car. For example, where's my example? The Nissan Leaf can take just up to an hour to recharge to 80% of capacity. Other cars can take up to 12 hours to reach the same amount. Recent analysis has found that only 1 in 7 public charging points in the UK are fast or rapid chargers, 1 in 7. So although we're talking about 17,000 new charging points being built over the last 12 months, we're still at 1 in 7 being rapid. The vast majority are slow chargers, which obviously take considerably longer time. So with EV adoption rising rapidly worldwide, manufacturers, operators and governments need to consider increasing the number of high-capacity charging points to not only ensure faster charging, but also to accommodate demand. So if you've got a fast charger, you can charge more cars. So it's not just about your car, it's the next person that comes along who can quickly charge their car as well. The next point we looked at was fragmented EV charging ecosystem. So manufacturers and OEMs and dealer groups are also faced with a fragmented changing ecosystem. The ecosystem consists of a number of different parties, including the charge point operator, which can often be associated to a specific car brand, and who is responsible for maintaining charging stations and setting prices for the infrastructure used, and the e-mobility service provider who provides access to the specific charging station network, because a lot of words, through a credit card or app. All that means is that we're lacking harmonization. It's complicated. There are, I think, 27 different types of of charge points or CPOs, and we need to remove the complication within that. Limited journey range. The final challenge facing manufacturers is the perception of limited journey ranges of EVs, meaning the distance a car can travel, as you all know. Most electric vehicles, on average, across the range, pure electric vehicles, 181 miles on a single charge. But that does depend on the time of year and weather conditions, because if it's cold, your battery won't go as far. However, for those needing to travel long distances on a regular basis, the journey range of most EVs could make opting for an electric car more difficult, with many consumers worried about the ability to travel long distances compared to a petrol diesel car, known as range anxiety, which is now transitioning into charge point anxiety. Continuing to improve the battery capacity, alongside making charging points more accessible, could help increase customer confidence in EVs and ensure the switch happens. So the things that we need to consider as an industry, Car Care Plan as a provider, the EV market share is increasing at an accelerated rate, mostly due to fuel prices. In the period up to 2030, there will be an aggressive restructuring of dealer networks to adapt to EV sales throughout distribution channels. Industry expectations are based on that new EVs will reach cost parity with ICE vehicles by 2030. So although you've got the additional costs currently on the ICE vehicles, on average of 23% higher for a similar model on a pure EV from an ICE vehicle, we are expecting parity by 2030, which again will increase the marketplace. EV overall running costs and parts requirements will result in large reductions in after-sales incomes, which is concerning us all, and how do we combat that? And with less servicing requirements, servicing on demand, or even remote vehicle management, customer touch points will also be greatly affected. As I understand it, there is one model out there currently where you just take your key in, you don't even take your car in, and I'll do the dial from the key. So some of the suggested solutions from Car Care Plan after talking to our dealer partners. So distributors and providers need to adapt to the EV volume and prestige disparity is closing. There is a strong customer appetite, but lack of knowledge. I think, again, what Andy said is that people want to change to electric vehicles, but there's also a transition anxiety. How are they going to manage? How are they going to come away? Who's there to help them? We need to ensure the customer touch points continue throughout ownership cycles. If we're going to see cars less, that means we see customers less. We need to create new and bespoke products and service just for electric vehicles. And EV charge anxiety solutions can promote additional customer interaction. I'd like to invite my panel up now, if I may.
I've a few questions teed up here. One to John. You're driving electric. Yeah, it's just. Well, John's head of the insurance Car Care Plan. He's worked in the business, so he knows on the business and the trade side. But also, it'd just be interesting to hear your experience about switching from ICE to EV, the hassle and the whatever that goes with it, and it's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, fire ahead.
Well, I've been an EV owner and driver for just over 2 years, and I have to say during that period I've learnt a lot. The biggest difference now is knowledge, and it's knowledge of what to do on everyday events. And what I mean by that is the challenges I've faced. When you become an EV driver, you realise that the plugs aren't all the same. So there are various different plugs, and depending on where I go, I might need a different plug to actually charge my car. And the first time you use something like a CCS Type 2 or a CHAdeMO plug has you a little bit concerned because they are different. You've also got things like how quickly will my car charge? Well, that depends. I think we've already heard a little bit from Chris in terms of how big the battery is, the maximum charging rate that they have, the charging station's output, and whether another vehicle is charging from the same place that you are. So, all right, daily commutes, not a problem. But what about longer runs? Daily commutes aren't a problem because we all know that we plug in at home and we charge as much as we can from there, so that's not an issue. Those longer runs, well, the first thing you've got to think about is, am I going to get there? So do I need to find a charging station? If I need one, will it work? And then how do I pay for it? Now, I think Chris has already mentioned that there are actually over 27 charging networks out there, each with a different way of allowing you to pay. So as an ICE driver, I was completely unaware of these conditions, but became concerned when I would deviate from the norm in terms of that journey to and from work. I was lucky, and the reason I was lucky is because a good friend of mine transitioned some 18 months prior to me, and he helped me a lot with advice. But not everybody's in that position. So being able to talk about these things with an independent body or advisors who can take you through your vehicle choice, the mileage that you'll be doing, and your personal concerns, I think is absolutely brilliant. Now, I was always told to take a break on longer journeys, and I do. And the reason I do that now is obviously because of an EV, so I plan my route, making sure that I've got a charging point which has good coffee, a key part now of my longer journeys, and excellent Wi-Fi. So now I can continue to work either on emails or Teams calls while I charge. The one thing I do have is an account that takes care of all of those payments in the majority of cases. So it's easy to pay, and I'm ready to press on then to my destination. Frustrations? Well, from my point of view, I want to know that the dealer I'm buying my EV from knows how to look after it. It's completely different from an ICE vehicle. We've already said that. I want to know that they understand the level of technology that's in my EV and can explain the benefits to me. Battery and technology evolution, we've touched on this again, is very, very fast-paced. And I also want to know that my dealer is able to give me confidence that they're going to be there for the long run. EV volumes are growing, as are the charging networks. Just not sure that networks can keep up with EV demand. And Chris has mentioned it, it's not about range anxiety for me anymore, it's all about charge anxiety. When I get there, will there be a charge point free? What power is it generating, and will it work? In summary, from my point, I think EVs are great. They're a great deal of fun to drive, and I actually think they do change the way that you consider driving. Acceleration is awesome, but play with that too often, and you'll find that your range falls tremendously. I spend 99% of my time with my foot on the accelerator, which might sound strange, but I hardly ever use the brake. But as soon as you take your foot off the accelerator, the vehicle's regen braking allows you to slow down and adds additional distance to your range. That action smooths out your driving and makes you think much more about when you brake. So I believe this functionality makes you a much more considerate driver. Okay. So in my point, I'm really glad I switched, and all of the issues that are in people's heads could be addressed with the right service and products by our dealer partners.
That's great. I've got a few questions coming in, and they're pretty hard-nosed. One of them on service requirements. Does the panel see differential labour pricing between ICE and EV as acceptable to customers? Anyone of the dealers take that on?
Yeah, well, I can answer that. So at the moment, there is no difference in price, but it's something that we need to keep the same because we want the adoption of EV vehicles. So if we make a difference in price at this current stage, will the adoption happen of the EV network? So we're saying the labour rates are more increased. So we need to look at other avenues to actually be able to address the issue of reducing incomes in the future.
Yeah, okay. And just another question here. For Mike, does Inchcape view the after-sales revenue drop will be greater from a parts or labour sales?
Well, it's a very good question because actually it depends where you put oil in your accounts. But to be honest, it could be the parts that has the biggest the biggest decrease in gross profit margins.
Right. Got a question for dealers. Charge anxiety. What are dealers doing to help? Well, we know we've got EVO, educate and overcome the negative perceptions. I think we've covered some of that. Unless, do you want to?
So what was the question again, sorry?
Sorry, what are dealers doing to overcome the negative perceptions of EV, I suppose, charging and so on?
I think dealers have got a huge job to do in education. That's one of the challenges which I see out there. There's a lot of ignorance, misinformation, and myths which surround any new technology. We've got to address these. We've got to take them head on. And we've got to turn that sales process into, it's a consultative environment. We've got to create an experience where we can take the customers on the education of what EV ownership actually is. And we've got to break down the barriers for petrol heads and skeptics to become customers, advocates. You know, there's an inevitability that the EVs are coming. We've got a role to take people, identify what their needs are, match them to the products which suit, and take them through the different challenges which are there. A recent survey of 18,000 drivers by the AA found that the top reasons that they said they wouldn't buy EV are lack of public charging points, EVs are too expensive, and either range anxiety or charge anxiety, depending on which language you use. But you know, whether they were or not considering buying an EV, many of the respondents weren't aware of government grant schemes and infrastructure investment, unaware of the range of modern EVs, unaware of how far they travel on average themselves, and unaware that the National Grid has repeatedly stated that it will cope with the demands as we move forward. Yeah. You know, those are things which we don't often hear about. So from a business point of view, we are accelerating the education behind our sales team. We've rolled out a Bright Spark in association with NFDA to upskill those salespeople and create that environment and that space and that experience where we can take people on the journey from what ICE is today to the whole ownership experience and living with an electric vehicle. As John's outlined, it's so different. It changes the way you live, breathe, your lifestyle, your journeys revolve around coffee and Wi-Fi. You are a lot more integral to that, but other technology complements it with Zoom or Teams. The amount of people now in the local Starbucks which are doing Zoom and Teams calls as part of business has massively accelerated. So technology complements itself. We just need to link them together and work with the customers to identify how we can do that best.
Yeah, I've got a few questions coalescing around the point and looking ahead to the agency, I think, really, and that is with on deal group after sales and also parts and service incomes with reduced parts requirements, reduced hours. So presumably there's less revenue coming in after sales is less profitable. I don't know whether that's necessarily true because some of the systems and components are very expensive. Mm-hmm. So it's not quite as simple as it's made out. But I don't. What do you reckon?
Well, so we've looked at the SMR part of our incomes, and so warranty incomes aside, yes, we can see because we've got, extended servicing times, we've got reduced brake wear, as you alluded to with your braking. We've lost our oil revenues. So with all these factors and actually looking at a 10-year life cycle of a vehicle, we can see that we between different brands, we could be experiencing 40 to 50% revenue drops on service, maintenance and repairs over the forthcoming years.
Yeah, so there's no...
Yes, yeah.
Just good question.
Sorry, the after-sales side is, it's massively important, and it is something that the automotive industry has to get a grip of, understanding the impact of it. You're right, they have fewer moving parts, less need for maintenance, service and repair, and revenues could decline in after sales by 55% to 2035. Businesses which are over-dependent on after sales revenue from vehicles aged 3 years and older are at risk. We've got to grow our market share. We've got to fight back in that after-sales arena to stay more relevant with customers. Over a period of time, we've lost a lot of revenue to Euro Car Parts, Halford Auto Centres, non-franchise operations, who are all going to be going through the same conversations. Their revenue is going to deteriorate in the same way that it's going to impact the after-sales business as ours. But we've got to turn that after-sales experience into a frictionless environment. We need to be doing proactive servicing rather than reactive servicing. We've got to recognise what customers' wants and demands are and start to challenge the environments that we have within our business to better suit that. We've said about charging and coffee and Wi-Fi, and yet you go around dealers and they haven't got Wi-Fi accessible to people, the coffee's undrinkable. So you think about how can we attract people back in, how can we increase those contact points in that after-sales environment. It's a huge challenge for us, but there's tools, there's mechanisms to do that, and to benefit that customer experience.
It's a huge, given that margins on after sales are so much higher. I've got a question from the floor. They're talking about the skills gap. I mean, we have a recruitment and training session later on, but the questioner is asking, has the skills gap affected the ability to work on vehicles? Do you have a disproportionate lead time for EV versus ICE?
From a business point of view, sort of coming out of COVID, we saw an exodus of technicians out of the business and out of the industry. Right. So we've been working really hard to try and fill that and to take those up to a skill level. I think as we transition through, you are likely to see almost a splitting of a workshop where you've got high-tech, computer-based technicians, and you've got your ICE technicians going through, and we're going to start to see a transition through that. Obviously, if you're in a business that has high commercial content, that crossover is going to come later on than the sort of car decline based on EV switchover. So from a business point of view, those workshops that have higher commercial content will see that tail out longer than a car environment necessarily would. But I think we will end up with two sets of technicians, the modern technician based around IT, downloads, software updates, and taking a battery apart and replacing cells within it. And alongside that, you'll have the traditional technician who will be taking gearboxes apart, dismantling engines, etc.
I've got another question from the floor. I'm not too sure whether it's from an interested dealer or a competitor looking to get a jump on you, but he said, what future products have you already developed in preparation for dealers in terms of EVs, and what are the fundamental differences you took into consideration in design?
Yeah, so Car Care Plan has spent the last 14 months investigating, focus grouping what would not only suit customers, but would also help on incremental sales profit and incremental replacement of after-sales profit. So, as of this month, we've launched our EV Drivers Club, which is the first bespoke electric vehicle driver-only club, if you like. Includes a number of benefits, a number of health checks, as I say, residual income or additional income for after-sales departments. But it's very customer-centric. We've linked up with ZapMap, with Bonnet, with Zoom EV, with Key Care, and all the benefits come as part of the EV Drivers Club package. So this is our first, and I think it's the first bespoke non-warranty product for electric vehicles in the marketplace.
Okay, brilliant. We're coming to the end of the session. Again, I'll just quickly, if you don't mind, give any takeaway you want to give dealers in the audience?
I guess from my point of view, it's I think the presentation started with how much time people are spending looking at electric cars and how much research they do. Therefore, the quality of the people that are talking to them and the knowledge is really important, because those people already understand what they're looking for. And it's about the things that they might not know. So the different charge points, the different ways that you can pay, the different fact that you've got different plugs, all of those sort of things. So it's taking it down to the very small level by which you can help people.
Okay, and Mike?
For me, really, it's all about infrastructure and facilities. Have we got the right infrastructure moving to 2030 for the dealer network? Have we got enough charge points? So that's a real big thing for me. And then another one would be the training, categorising the technicians. So we're at level 1, 2, 3 and 4, working out what our estate looks like. And then also non-technical, because if we're going to sell these, we need to be at the forefront, as you alluded to earlier, and then customer retention.
Okay.
Because that's what the real big one. And connected cars, have we embraced connected cars technology? Because I speak to people who drive sales cars, demos, they haven't even got themselves connected. So how do we connect the customers? And that's leads for us in the future. So that's my
Right, great. And Richard?
I think Mike's made some really, really valid points on it. I think probably more holistically, the motor trade's been through some torrid times recently. We've had pandemic, Brexit, semiconductors, and political turmoil, and obviously war. So we've shown how resilient we are and how good we can be. I think prior to COVID, we'd probably got a bit sluggish, a bit complacent, and I think now we need to up our game. We've got to rise to the challenges of EV because there will be opportunity that comes out of EV, and we very much need to embrace it. It is coming down the line, so we've got to understand it and put forward that customer experience and customer proposition. I think the final bit was paraphrasing Darwin. It's not the strongest that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's those that are most adaptable to change. Right. And this is absolutely a monumental shift and change that we all need to prepare ourselves for as soon as we can.
Right. And finally, Chris.
Yeah, for us, we need to ensure that the products and services that we have encompass all car buyers, obviously. That although we're talking about the electrification of our business, there is still going to be a lot of cars out there for a number of years that are traditional. So we still need our traditional routes to market, remain them robust, keep trading in place, develop new products for ICE vehicles, whilst always keeping electric vehicles on the forefront of our minds.
Okay, that's brilliant. Listen, thanks to Chris for speaking and our panellists today. Warm welcome, please. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you.
So we were talking about the electrification of the UK motor industry, which is obviously what the event is all about. At Car Care Plan, we've been adapting our products and services over the last 10 years because we're predominantly, or one of our major products is a used car warranty. We've had used car warranties in place for electric vehicles for 10, 12 years. Now, and as the push towards 2030 approaches, we need to engage with our motor business partners, OEMs and dealer groups to understand what their pain points are rather than ours. And then we adapt our products and services to match their needs and the customer's needs. So customers, there is a want and a need to change to electric vehicles. However, there's still a lot to learn for customers to switch. Changing to an electric vehicle, a pure electric vehicle from an ICE vehicle isn't just a change of vehicle anymore, it's a culture shift. And we need to be able to adapt to what the customer needs and help them transition, change from their current driving habits to the complete different way of driving a vehicle. We're used to just pointing a car in one direction, putting some liquid in it and carrying on. That's not the case anymore. It's not so much about range, it's about charge. When I get there, will there be a charge point? Will it work? How rapid is it? And so on and so forth. That's what we need to consider for the customer. Where can they go for help? Our dealer groups and OEMs training their staff to be able to answer the questions that customers are going to have. So to be able to adapt to that marketplace, we need to ensure that we're giving customers the correct advice, we're giving them options, they understand what the transition to a new electric vehicle is, and how their life's going to change when they plan a journey. We need to make that transition much more palatable for customers, and what we've got 7 and a bit years to get that right, because in 7 and a bit years we're all going to be driving or buying. If we're going to buy a new vehicle, it's going to be automatic and it's going to be electric, and what we can't do is leave it until the last minute. We need to understand or learn from everything that we've learned over the last 5 or 6 years as EVs have increased and increased and increased. 17% of new car sales in the UK so far this year in 2022 have been pure electric vehicles. That's up from 11% last year. It's meant to be 50%. Industry experts are saying it's going to be 50% by mid-2025. So we have to adapt. But the infrastructure behind adapting is salespeople training, customer knowledge, customer confidence in buying an electric vehicle, and what products and services we at Car Care Plan can help customers adapt. So for car dealers, it shouldn't be a worrying time. It should be a time when our partners, our dealer partners and the OEMs need to adapt to not only how they present the vehicles to customers, but also how they sell their vehicles. The next 8 years are going to be the most change I've been in this industry for 32 years. It's going to be the most I've ever seen, because we've got agency models coming through, we've got the electrification of the entire marketplace, charging infrastructure which is way behind from what it needs to be, and this isn't just the UK. This is worldwide. So we can learn from other countries. And how they've adapted and how they've moved forward faster than the UK, and we can learn and move forward from that. But the changes in place for motor dealers need to consider training, not just sales, but on after sales. Do you have, I know that there's the Bright Spark program with the NFDA, which our client Alan Ford, who was on our panel today, have adapted to. But the reduction in vehicle customer touch points in after sales, the reduction in parts, no oil anymore. So how do you account for not having oil as part of the after sales service? And because a lot of electric vehicle servicing regimes are on demand, or every 2 years, or they can be done remotely. And that's sustainability and customer retention has always been key in the marketplace. That's going to become harder. So how do we move and change that we can? To bring that together, to make ourselves, to keep customers coming in, we need to give them a reason to come in. So, and that needs to be something different. Is it free charging? Is it coffee that's drinkable? Is it getting vehicles in for health checks? Because there's a number of health checks that aren't included within service regimes because we've investigated it. Something as simple as a charger lead. Having that health checked, because without your charger lead, you're not charging your car. That one stretch of cord is the difference in between moving and not moving now. So we need to embrace that and encourage customers to come back in at least once a year for their servicing, for health checks, and so on and so forth. There was a massive exodus of skilled technicians during the pandemic. So motor dealer groups are only just recovering from that. Now, when they're hiring in new technicians or trainee technicians or putting through training or technical college, that is now embracing electric vehicles. Battery management, just on how those vehicles work differently. So you'll have your fundamental and historic way of fixing cars. ICE vehicles are going to be around for a while. They're probably never going to be completely gone. So you are going to have that. So although the electrification is going to be 2030, you can still sell a used ICE vehicle. They're going to be about for a good 15 years yet, at least across the car park. We need to understand electric vehicle buying cultures, renewal cycles, because the drop in a new car from an ICE vehicle in the first year is around 24%. On an electric vehicle, it's 12%. So people will be keeping. The likelihood is that people will keep electric vehicles longer, and therefore that will restrict the amount of electric vehicles that are available for used buyers. So, and we need to adapt to that as well. And vehicle availability, we need many more semiconductors in an electric vehicle than we do a standard vehicle, or a binary vehicle, if you like. So, yeah, times are changing. But there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of friends and colleagues I haven't seen since pre-pandemic, to be honest. So it's really great to catch up with them. And I think this is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. As if you look at it, 17% of our marketplace at the moment on new vehicles are electric, but in 2 years' time it's going to be 50%. You can probably see this event being 3 times bigger in 2 years' time.